say I dull it. Okay, and we can see. Let's see on camera. There you can see the edge, right? It's dulled across the edge. And then I take the same ruler, let me see. Let me get it cleaned up a little bit more. You can see what I'm talking about. It's just so easy to just get an edge on it. The oscillator is so willing to be sharpened. It's just so cooperative. Doesn't matter what you're using to sharpen it, you can have it be very dull and then still get it back to a nice edge. I mean, look at that. That is impressive. I mean, there are a lot of steels that can't do that. So even though this is, you know, perhaps not as corrosion resistant as I would wish or like, you can still, it's still very, very good. So that's definitely something to consider here in this kind of utility blade. I mean, you got this affordable, you know, basically affordable folding X-Acto knife. Thank you for tuning to NeptuneKnives. What you see here is a glimpse of my everyday carry. And if it looks like a big mess of clutter, that's because it is. And when you start to think about products that you want to carry, you start to think about how convenient, how versatile, how easy it is to carry this product. And so today, we're going to move all this stuff aside and look at then something I feel is a very convenient little utility folder. And I got my notes here for this video. And here we have the Cold Steel Mini Tuff Lite. So this will be a 7-point review of the Cold Steel Mini Tuff Lite. This knife is actually my #1 used folding knife here in the shop. Gets the job done and has a lot of features that make it, I would say, outstanding. So starting with concept, you know, obviously it's extremely light and it's definitely focused on being a utility blade. Obviously it's not very tactical since it's a tip down carry. There's no flicking it open. It's not gonna, you know, it's not a quick open deploy knife. You can see it's got a lot of resistance. Safe, reliable, compact utility folder. Now on the construction, I find it very ingenuitive. You can literally see here there's just a circular hole cut. Inside there is a spring. The spring is just sitting in there and it just keeps the lock bar pushed up. Pin right here, stop pin there, you know, the triad lock, basically kind of like a back lock, and basically that spring sitting in that hole just keeps it Keeps that tension, keeps that lock bar going. You got the one-piece construction here. It's just overall very ingenuitive. That is a very creative, I think, design. The steel is Aus-8, which we see in always cold steel knives. And you can see here there's rust. And this is not necessarily from me living in a humid environment. I actually live in a pretty dry area. But just using it around water, let's say you're using it perhaps to cut fruit or something, or food. The construction here, that since this handle doesn't have much, I guess, holes, you could use some holes for perhaps to let air come through. I find it very easy to get a razor edge. And it won't keep that edge, I'll explain in a second, necessarily that long. And I'll give you a good benchmark. But it can obtain a razor edge, and it can do it on a variety of methods. And a lot of steels, you guys probably have heard, they don't always do that. Like S30V, a little more challenging. I think perhaps just because the composition of it. You look at like XHP, a lot of people here on YouTube even have mentioned, and I can say the same, where it's like it's touchy. You have to use a certain rod, a certain grid, you know, you have to do a certain way, and you just have to be very careful with it. And it's just not that easy to obtain a sharp edge. I don't know about the durability of the screw and hardware. I've never taken this apart. It's just something that doesn't really seem like you have to. The finishing though, the fit and finish, I would say is good, but I wish they took some time to smooth out these sharp corners. Here on the lock bar especially, and up here too, and even in the finger hole, the thumb hole, they're very sharp. Here is not so bad. So I'm saying this knife replaces an X-Acto knife, and it literally does. You can see here, if I have to cut the shape of an outline for a knife, I can just use this, take a cutting mat, and just trace the image, and it'll do it. I mean, it is that razor sharp. You can shave with it, you can get like a thin layer of skin off. The edge geometry, combined with the thinness of the blade, and then this Aus-8 steel being able to get a nice clean edge, I mean, it catches on anything. Like it just, I mean, you could just, and it'll still cut. It's just a really great knife for when you just need a sharp blade. No nonsense, no perhaps beefiness, no stabbing, no crazy prying, but when it comes down to just having a fine blade, this is the equivalent of an X-Acto knife. Only issue is that an X-Acto knife, you can get the entire blade to touch the surface you're cutting. This, because of that choil right there, is a little bit problematic. Like when you want to trace something, you have to use the tip, as opposed to the X-Acto knife where you can be like almost like a pencil. You know, if this area was sharpened all the way across, you know, kind of like on some tactical knives, maybe a Hinder or Warren Thomas, if it went all the way to the edge like there, then you could just trace the edge. I mean, even like, if you get what I'm saying, like if the edge is sharp right there, then when I want to cut, I can hold it down and just pull. This one, unfortunately, I have to use specifically the tip, and it's fine, but it's just a little bit more, less control. I would like the versatility of having that little spot right there. And I also would appreciate perhaps a slightly larger blade. If they had brought this choil back a little bit, or even made the overall knife just a little bit longer, I feel that this would become a much more, you would just gain a little bit in versatility and take another step up. It's already compact enough. I just wish it was just a little bit more blade length. And in terms of if you have to wear gloves, you can see these choils are quite cut in a larger fashion. Bigger hands, if for some reason you can't get all 4 fingers, you can always do that. And it feels comfortable sitting there on the pinky. The thickness of it is good enough. Overall, it's great with gloves on, small hands, big hands. It works really good. And it feels very secure. The only thing is it has this slick texture, in which kind of then makes it not feel as grippy. And that's something too bad it wasn't made out of like some, you know, high grip G10 or something. That would be awesome. Taking this knife around and having it just clipped on this board, it doesn't come off. It's that, how do you say, the tension is that good. Like it's durable. It's just really good grip. It's secure, and because of that, I think that's really great when it comes to using it as a tool. You don't have to worry about perhaps it falling off your backpack that easily or out of your pocket. And you can see it has this lanyard hole, so being that this is a compact utility folder, you know, depending on what you use for self-defense or for those kind of things, whether it be like a small fixed blade, a tactical pen, a tactical flashlight, you start to quickly run out of room. You know, you can't put a tactical pen and flashlight in the same pocket. You know, which one do you grab? It gets everything's clattering against each other. You know, this is something that you can fit easily in your pocket. But beyond that, you can even put it on a little carabiner. You can even clip it on one of these things, and it'll hold. And that just makes this even more convenient and more versatile in how you can carry it. So it's something that you can definitely have on you if you just need a nice utility folder. Now, in terms of using this as a self-defense blade, obviously it's very compact, so that's okay. I mean, if you're more used to perhaps using your fists to hit something, you know, very close range, it'll be really effective. It'll cut and penetrate. But since this choil does have a notch right there, and it is such a short blade, there is that chance that it'll snag on something. And unfortunately, that would be a change in design. Like I said, if this edge came all the way to the end here, I think that would still be safe enough. This cutout on the choil is good enough to still keep your finger in place. I don't feel like an individual would really risk that much chance of cutting themselves. This doesn't have really a tip for piercing or stabbing, so definitely you're going to be slashing. So it's not something like you're going to run up on the blade. So I think they could consider that if they were to make a tactical version to do that to the blade. But you can see here, even when you open the knife, even if I'm pushing my thumb up against the blade, you can see here it still avoids that corner. So if I'm purposely trying to, like unlike on the Dragonfly, which might actually cut your thumb, you can see here it's not bad. It's not like ever hitting that spot. And obviously the ergonomics definitely are secure enough. It sits in your palm, it can sit against that finger, it's got choils, it's got jimping, it's got the things to make it secure enough in a fight that you have control over it. And you definitely feel that, especially with the small blade and more grip, which is something I like, that philosophy. But you can see the deployment is obviously not tactical. It's tipped down, so that doesn't work. Even opening it is not the easiest. I mean, your finger can you can kind of get stuck right there on that part right on there. It's kind of, let me show you. That bulge right there seems to be up here actually. When you start to come around, you see, and it kind of pushes your finger away from the hole. And to be honest, if they just added a bevel there, I think that would solve that. I think that would be a large improvement actually, to add the bevel. I see the concern here is that the pocket clip kind of is near that spot, so perhaps maybe move the pocket clip down a little bit and then add a bevel right there would be great. I mean, it's far enough away from the pivot to not affect anything there. And again, you're not going to be prying with this, you know, this thin little blade. Opening this knife feels just slow and it resists you. I mean, the pressure of that lock bar on the blade tang it's very like, I mean, look, it just doesn't even, I mean, look, that's how unsmooth it is. It's not even, I mean, even at the very, look. So it just doesn't have that quick, easy open feeling. You can't flick it open, and I'm wearing a glove on this hand, but let's see, like, it just doesn't feel secure. It doesn't feel, it just kind of resists you. I mean, if that was something they could fix, that would be a lot more better. Also, a wave feature would be awesome. If they did put a wave feature on this, then when it opens very quickly, you could easily use it. And then you know what? Then it could actually be a pretty decent, I would say, knife. I mean, even in reverse grip, a little miniature, you know, I would say karambit. So realistically, it's got the ergonomics, it's got the lock strength, you know, it's got those things that make it a good self-defense knife, a very compact one, but a very good one. But unfortunately, no wave, tip down, and this kind of rough opening tension make it not obviously good for deploying it in a self-defense situation. But again, this was more of a utility knife. If they came up with a cool tactical version though, that would be awesome. If you're in a fight and it's open, and this choil perhaps was reduced down to an edge, then you know what, it's actually a pretty decent fire. And if you'd modded a wave onto it, you know, even though you would have to pull it out, tip down, but then you could perhaps run it across your pant leg or something, it would flick open, then it's actually fine. I mean, then you got open, you got deployed, you got the secure grip, you can use it. This knife is definitely one of my favorite knives. Like I said, it's the main knife I use here in the shop, and that'll depend on the individual. If you're somebody that carries a folding knife, a larger one in your pocket, and that takes up perhaps one pocket, and that is your, I guess you would say, go-to tactical everything knife, then okay. I prefer that if I have to have a self-defense situation to have a small fixed blade, something purpose-built for fighting. But then have a very efficient, very, very precise cutting tool, in that sense, almost like an X-Acto knife, like this, for my actual cutting tasks. Like I said, the only thing perhaps would just be a more stain-resistant steel, but even as is, this Osei is great for getting that clean razor edge quickly. So I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at neptuneknives@gmail.com or PM me here on YouTube. Keep an eye out for more videos to come, more 7-point reviews, and tactical knife talk, whatever I can do to contribute. Thank you.